Are we good to start now? Yeah.
We
Okay,
are.
great. Okay, awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Weeb, and I am the chair of the New Professionals with the Institute of Public Administration of Canada's Manitoba region. Before we begin here today, I would like to acknowledge that IPAC Manitoba is located on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Ininiwak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene, and on the homeland of the Métis. We acknowledge the distinct histories of the 7 numbered treaties that apply in this land. We recognize that public administration and public policy have been used as tools of colonialism and the harm this has caused Indigenous peoples. We are committed to promoting public administration in a way that advances reconciliation in a spirit of collaboration with Indigenous people and communities. I would like to welcome you all today to our panel discussion on the topic of Peguis First Nation and the exercise of Indigenous child welfare jurisdiction. Today we are joined by representatives from Canada, Manitoba, and of course, Peguis First Nation. Also with us here today are Elder Dwayne McCorrister, also known as Sunman, and Ryan Stevenson. At this time, I would like to respectfully ask Sunman to bring some opening remarks, along with the pipe ceremony and a song from Ryan Stevenson. So now I'll pass the virtual microphone over to you, Sunman.
Yeah, I was just introducing myself. My name is Sunman from the Eagle Clan. I'm a White Horse warrior. I'm from Peguis, Manitoba. And my other name is Dwayne McCorrister, member of Peguis, born in Winnipeg. And I just want to share a little bit about myself and how I got to where I am today, I guess. That was kind of a request that was asked of us last night, so I'm going to share a little bit. Please have a better understanding of who I am. And 1969, I was born in Winnipeg, and we stayed in Winnipeg for a while. Then we moved to Rivers, little town outside of Brandon, Manitoba. I remember starting school there. Then we moved back to Winnipeg. Did some more schooling there. And then we moved to Peguis and went to school there. But I remember school in Rivers and school in Winnipeg was a lot different than being out in Peguis in terms of the racism part. I fought a lot in those schools. And I understand why today. I didn't really understand back then, but back in those days it was like it was normal that you were going to get picked on. It seemed like such a normal thing, and you had no choice but to take it. But today I understand that that was all BS, and we were sure being abused back then. But I moved home with my family, went to school up to grade, I think 10 and 11 before I walked away from it. I was never one to be harnessed that way. I was always free. I always wanted to do things my way when it came to life. I was really involved in sports. I was good at it. That was what my life circulated around. Hockey, baseball, whatever sport was available, really. Our school system out home was pretty poor compared to what you would get in the cities and everything. So there wasn't a whole lot of availability there. You kind of got what was available in hockey and baseball, sit out there. And I was good at it. I didn't understand that it could have led for me to provide for my life if I put more into it. But again, that wasn't really something that was taught to us. you know, the value of sports and what it could really do for you in your entire life. It was more of just an activity that I enjoyed, took advantage of, and also, you know, abused through drugs and alcohol. And when that became a part of my life, then I knew I was heading down a road to nowhere, and it was this our way of life that came our way to our community. By then my father was on that journey of searching for the truth about who we were as the Red people. He's my late father now, Gary McCorster, passed away a couple of years ago now, and he lived a rough life too. Like back in Rivers, you know, it was all alcohol with him and my mom, and by the time we moved to Winnipeg, they made the decision that they weren't gonna live that way anymore, and so his journey began for him to begin to search through the elders who we were. Who are we then? So for me, I was kind of aware of it because of him, but it wasn't something circulating throughout the community. It was more laughed at than anything. That's the extent of that damage. It was so bad that our people didn't even care about our way and want to know about our way, and we laughed at it. My dad went through all of that. He lost a lot of friends when he took those first few steps on that red road. I remember that, because I remember they always had company at the house, and they used to go out on the land and skidoo ride, and they're always together. And after he began to walk, learn about the ways of our people, I noticed that. I didn't know that was going on until later in life. Then I found out that a lot of their friends turned their backs on them. So in this way of life came to our community through visiting a neighboring community and a group of people that came out. You know, that's where I was introduced to it. And like I said, I was at a bad point in my life, and I was looking for a way out. And all those things that are available out there, like health care treatment centers and all those things, I couldn't see myself going there. But I remember praying and bargaining with God, help me get out of this and I'll change. And without knowing it, you know, that's what changed my life. And it was through those people that came, I got to meet one of them, who later became my wife, who I was with for 26 years. I married her when I was 21 years old. I'm 54 today. But she was my friend and my teacher, as well as a lot of other elders. And I left home because when I met her and was introduced to this way of life, it grabbed me. Something felt good. Something felt right. And I was in a mess already, and I was really looking for a way out. And because it felt good, I took a chance and went with it. And I left home to go and travel with these elders, with my partner, and begin to learn about who we are, who we were. It was all about being on the land. It was all about being in the lodges that our people carry. It was all about sitting with our elders. It was all about traveling to all these different places, these sacred places throughout Turtle Island. It was all governed by spirit, because, you know, these elders, my partner and many other beautiful elders in that journey, were were those real red people that the Creator made us. They had that connection to the land. They had that connection to spirit. And when they took their pipe, when they used their rattles, when we went into the sweats, when we went out on the land, we did anything in that reflection of ceremony. That higher power was there to bring that guidance and that assistance and to teach us the truth. That's what that whole journey was about. I began to learn about who I really am, Sun Man. All I ever knew me to be was Dwayne McCorster, a name that doesn't really have any meaning. But Creator sent me here as Sun Man. And I remember when my mom and dad took me to get my name from the elder, I was this high. When he gave me that name, Sun Man, he told my mom and dad, and again, this was before I stepped foot on the red road now, going back. Told my mom and dad after he did the ceremony, they came, he said, they showed me this little boy when he was older. He was carrying a big drum. He had an eagle whistle around his neck. He's walking into a lodge. He says, and that's all signs of the Sundance. He says, and I don't know why they showed me that, but he said, I don't know if he'll be taking part in that Sundance, if he'll be running a Sundance, but that's what they showed me. His name is Sunman, Kizisidene. And I remember hearing him say those words and I wasn't believing him. Because like I said, I was involved in sports and that's what I was convincing myself that I was going to be as I got older. But I remember one day I had a drum around my shoulder, over my shoulder, and I had an eagle whistle around my neck. And it was the morning of the first day of the Sundance. When I moved away and I was staying in Fort Alec, the people we were with, one of them ran a Sundance, and that's where my journey began. And that way was on the drum, sitting around that big drum, carrying that drum. And I remember walking into that lodge that morning and I stepped foot in that lodge and like I hit a wall. And I quickly remembered what that old man was telling my parents. I said, this is what he saw. This is what they showed him. And I remember that moment was the very first real evidence that I received. Like, this is who you are. This is what you have. That's who Creator made you. Gifted you with the spirit, the land, and vision. That old man saw that when he was using his gifts. And that bit of evidence really struck something in me. Because when I started out on this road, it wasn't just an automatic thing. Because of all that damage that was done to us. You know, they took everything from us, led us to believe another way, led us to walk another way, and made us believe that our way was wrong to begin with. And why do you ever want to go back that way? Why do you ever want to have anything to do with that? And that's how powerful that damage was. And the way the world is today, you know, it doesn't seem like it can connect. It doesn't seem like it could fit in because of the way the world is. Everything's fast, everything's material. You don't need to pick medicines from the land anymore. You don't need to hunt anymore or fish anymore because you got pharmacies, you got grocery stores, you got clothing stores. Doesn't make sense. That's the mindset that people have after they take a few steps. Then the Spirit begins to bring them in more and teach them the value of life and how sacred life is. And if you want anything from the Creator, you got to meet him halfway. You got to work for it. You got to earn it. It's the same thing. So in the beginning, it's not easy to just jump in there and and believe it. You got to work for it. You got to earn it. You got to practice it. You got to go through it time and time and time and time again. And as I was being led by my elders and taught by my elders and my teachers and traveling all over the place, I was seeing and experiencing and feeling all these things without really understanding what I was a part of. So at the back of my mind too, I was still being pulled home where all my friends were, all that crazy life was. And I was questioning, why am I choosing to go out of my way to go sit in the bush and get chewed up by mosquitoes and go without food and water when all my other friends and all these other people are at a dance having a good time or traveling to go to a hockey tournament, and they don't care whatsoever what I'm doing like that. That's what I was going through throughout my journey. So when I stepped foot in that lodge and I was carrying that drum, I realized something there. Now it had more meaning. Now I was going to listen a little bit more and just pay attention a little bit more. And I wanted a good life. That's what it was all about. I wanted all the things everybody had. I wanted just a good life. That was the bottom line. I don't want to be looked down upon. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be hopeless. I don't want to be all these things that were looked at as. I don't want to be labeled that way. I want to shine. I want to be somebody. And that's what they encouraged me to understand, that that's what was going to happen. I said, you're going to walk with the Creator if you choose to. There was a time when this question came to me by those elders, those teachers. They said, son, man, you have reached your destination. Are you ready to fulfill your purpose? And I quickly looked back behind me at my past, the life I was going to decide whether or not I was going to hang on to or just leave. And I looked back there and I couldn't see anything worth feeling bad about leaving. And I said, yeah, I'm ready to fulfill my purpose. And the first thing that took place was that they shaped me. They carved me. They took me to show me who I really was as Sun Man. Showed me who our people were, what they had, how they lived, those capabilities, that connection, all those things. And then they showed me what happened, how it was all taken away, almost destroyed, you know. Then I began to understand. Now I could see a bigger picture and how it was affecting our people everywhere, right across Turtle Island. And how without knowing that kind of truth, I would have never knew. I would have just had that same attitude and same mentality. We're the ones we get looked down upon. We're the poor, ugly ones, and you know, like that. The way it always was. We're nobodies. We lost. You know, but they showed us. They showed us this beautiful people that were one with the earth, brought nothing but balance, connection, and beauty to life. That's who we were. And that's who you are, they said. And the Creator didn't send you here as a nobody. The Creator sent you here, a Sun Man with a total purpose, a total identity. And you walk with the Creator and meet Him halfway. Listen to your elders as they guide you. And you'll go on to the land. You'll go into those lodges. You'll go into those ceremonies. And little by little, that identity will come. Little by little, your purpose will be there. And you'll begin to serve it. It was a real humbling experience. Today, I realize it was that journey of what everyone's talking about today. Truth and reconciliation. They tell us, in order to know the truth, you need to know where you were, where you are now, where you're going. And that's what they showed me. That's what they taught me. And that vision that old man had all those years ago when he gave me my name, it came true. I danced in that Sundance. I helped in that Sundance as a singer and as a whipman, as a helper for years. And then the day came when the spirit came and said, son, man, that vision that old man had was that you have this lodge too. That lodge is coming now, and you'll run that lodge. And I've done that. I've done that back home in my community in Peguis for 14 years. And I since then already passed it on to my nephew. Like I completed my purpose. That was my purpose. And I found out on the 4th year of hosting that ceremony, the spirit came and said, son, man, you have fulfilled your purpose. And I was kind of like taken back and blown away by that, like to hear those words from spirit, you fulfilled your purpose, son, man. And I was so young, and it's like, you know, and we're taught that Creator sends everybody here with a purpose. And until you fulfill that purpose, they say, you'll always come back. Always come back until you fulfill that purpose. To hear those words meant so much. And I totally give credit to those elders, those ancestors, all the ones that went before us, because they totally took us the right way, never ever misled us, loved us to the max. They're the reason. They're the reason for our success, getting us to where we are, to helping us reach our potential as those red people again. And in our hearts, that's all we want to give. In this journey with CFS and this whole legislation, now we're looking like 30 years later from my journey, you know, and they told us it was going to get that way. In the beginning, it was all about me. I just was thinking, I want to get better. I want to, you know, get out of this mess I'm in. But as they began to shape me, and I began to get a bigger picture of what we have as a people, who we are, and how beautiful and powerful and connected to everything it is, then it became bigger. Now I saw hope for my family. Now I saw hope for our people, and the spirit, our ancestors, that's what they're all about. They're all about making things better. They're all about giving the best to everybody. And that's how they raised us. You're going to help your people. You're going to help the children. You're going to help the earth. And it turned that way inside. It wasn't like I had to. It just became this great desire inside. Like my people, these need to hear these things. You need to see these things. Because words don't do justice. Everybody throughout the island now has heard the words. It's all about action now. And it got to that point where I just need to get it out there. I need to help the people. They deserve this. I was in such a mess. I was so lost, so much pain and anger and all those things that so many of our people continue to carry this day. And I just wanted them to get what I got, you know. And eventually we earned a lodge, because we were forever in the bush. Every ceremony we did was outside, rain, snow, or shine. Elders, women and children, young people, children, us, enduring the weather, proving ourselves to the Creator how much faith we had in Him and belief in Him, because He was saying, build that lodge, go in there and do what you've got to do. And by doing this, I'll clear your path a little bit more. I'll set things up a little bit more. All those things you're thinking about and praying for and worrying about, then do this, because it's all there. That's what we've been doing all these years gone by. 30 plus years have gone by now, and we run these ceremonies like that over and over and over and over. So at that point, you know, it grew, became what it became. Now we're affiliated with Clemene, this group here, this whole new legislation. And Clem will fill you in on what it's become that way. But they came with tobacco. We went into ceremony. It all unfolded and got to the point that it got. My point is, our way is a journey for everybody. And as long as we put what is required in place, it's going to continue to unfold. And it's the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life. It's the greatest thing I have ever achieved and could ever have wanted. And I would want nothing more for my people than just the opportunity to be able to go and receive those kind of things that I did. So that's a bit of who I am. And I look forward to this whole relationship strengthening, prospering, and growing even more for the many out there that are waiting and needing this. So Kitchimigwich for hearing me out shortly. And like I said, I look forward to watching this grow. Look forward to watching all of you perform what you've got to do for all of this. Miigwech. And I'm going to take the pipe like I always do, lift it to the Creator, and continue to reach out to all those ones that have been in the forefront all along. They're the ones that we'll call upon first in all of this. So have a little bit more patience. As I take the pipe, you can pray in your own way. Think about whatever it is you need to think about and clear your mind. Think big. Reach out to the Creator. Good. Good. Like that.
No comes, no comes, hoy. Okay, it's high, no comes, no comes. Hey, hey, oh. Hey, hey, down. Hey, 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 down. Hey, hey, okay, change time. Isn't that big no comes, no comes. Hey, hey, oh. Okay, change time. Isn't that big no comes, no comes. Hey, hey, oh. Hey, hey, hi. Hey, 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 oh. Hey, hey, que se dan, que se dan, que no comes, no comes, hey, hey, oh. Que se dan, que se dan, perdón, no comes, no comes, hey, hey, oh. Hey, hey, hi. Hey, 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 now, hey, okay, change that, isn't that, no comes, no comes, hey, hey, oh. Okay, take that, isn't that, no comes, no comes, hey, hey, oh.
Gutch for giving me your time to open up this day with that ceremony and sharing a little bit about myself. So thank you. I'm just gonna turn it over to the rest here now. Gutch.
I'd like to offer a big thank you to Sunman and Ryan for getting us started off right. I'd now like to introduce our esteemed panel on Peguis First Nation and the exercise of Indigenous child welfare jurisdiction. With us today, we have Clemene Hornbrook. She is the Executive Director of Peguis Child and Family Services. Earl Stevenson, who is in-house counsel, Peguis Child and Family Services. From Canada, we have Scott Amos. He is the Regional Program Manager, Children and Families Programs and Partnerships Directorate, Manitoba Region with Indigenous Services Canada. There's Glenn Walsh, the Acting Advisor to the Director with Indigenous Services Canada's Child and Family Service Reform Sector. And finally, from the province of Manitoba, we have Emmett Collins. He is the manager of the Indigenous Governing Body Support Branch with Manitoba Families. So as this is an informal panel discussion, we encourage members of the panel to respond to one another and engage in an open discussion. So as best as everyone can over Zoom, Please feel free to jump in and respond to your fellow panelists as you might in any other discussion. I also want to mention that this discussion is being digitally recorded. And for the audience, please note that there will be a brief Q&A period after the discussion. Okay, let's start here with a question for Canada. Could you please lend some context to C92 for us? Maybe just tell us a bit about where it came from and what it's attempting to do.
Okay. I see my colleague on the screen, so we didn't coordinate as to who would take the lead on this. So I'll just jump right in, Glenn, just to provide a little context on the federal legislation, an act respecting First Nations, Inuit and Métis children, youth and families. So on June 21st, 2019, the act became an official law. And on January 1st, 2020, its provisions came into force. What does that mean? It means that it affirms the rights of First Nations, Inuit and Métis people to exercise jurisdiction over child and family services. It establishes national principles such as the best interest of the child, cultural continuity, and substantive equality. It contributes to Canada's implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and it provides an opportunity for Indigenous peoples to choose their own solutions for their children and families. Just a quick snapshot of what that means to date with respect to Canada's implementation of the Act. So from a national snapshot, as of August 23rd, 2023, ISC has received 76 notices under the framework of the Act of intent and requests from Indigenous Governing Bodies under Section 20 of the Act, 16 of which are from Manitoba. This represents over 111 Indigenous communities across Canada, of which 25 are in Manitoba. There are 24 coordination agreement discussion tables. One is currently active in Manitoba. There are 7 signed coordination agreements in Canada, including Peguis First Nation that we sit here with today. And that was signed with the province of Manitoba on January 31st, 2023. As for a regional snapshot, we have 10 First Nations in Manitoba who have provided notices of intention to exercise legislative authority under Section 20.1 of the Act. Section 20.2 of the Act, we have received 6 notices from Indigenous Governing Bodies who have expressed interest to initiate coordination agreement discussion tables. Out of the regional office, we continue to support capacity funding requests and activities of Indigenous Governing Bodies and First Nation Section 35 rights holders. That's just a glimpse, just a very quick snapshot and some context around the Act.
Thank you so much, Scott. We can hear you. It's a little faint. And I was wondering if maybe, yeah, it looks like we're moving tighter in. That's perfect. That's great.
There we go. I just wonder if Glenn has anything further to add.
I won't unmute myself. That's the issue at the moment. I think one thing I'd like to add, can you hear me? I better make sure. Okay, thank you. One thing I'd like to add is the goal of this legislation, the way it was written, the intention behind it was to try and do things differently. We didn't want to just repeat the mistakes of the past. We didn't want to continue. We wanted to put some action in, like Sunman was talking about. It was time for action. In the process, I don't know that there was, no, I think I will say that there could have been more consultation, especially with provinces and territories, to make sure everyone was on the same page and knowing we were all moving together, and that has created some relationships that need to be bridged still. But the hope was to stand back and create more of a space where we can hear what needs to be heard, not impose our systems on Indigenous communities, and to try and continue trying to do the work to get our systems to be a little more flexible, and so that we can meet the needs of Indigenous communities. And that work, we've learned a lot already. Peguis was one of the first communities that gave notice that they were coming forward. And it's been a journey, and I was lucky enough to be there for the whole journey. And I'm grateful for everything that I've learned individually. I'm also grateful that I was able to use my newness, because I've only been in public service since 2019, and only on this team since 2021. I was able to use that to say, why are we doing this? Why can't we just do this? I don't understand. And so I think, and I said, I don't understand this. You expect me to go tell people, who don't work for government how to do this? So I think that was actually a real a benefit to the process. And so I still say I'm new so that I can still say some things like that.
That's a great trick. In talking about journeys, I imagine that negotiating implementation of the bill must have been quite the process. I'd like to start with Peguis on this one. Would you like to describe what the negotiation was like? Sorry, I'm unable to hear you. I don't know if that's just me.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience while we sort our audio issues out.
Okay, I will let Earl Stevenson begin, and I'll get more into the service delivery and kind of let him talk about big picture from, the date our First Nation and agency provided notice.
Bonjour, Annie. Français. Menage Dijnikas. Ikinak Todem. Peguis and Dunji. Dungam. My name is Earl Stevenson. I am in-house legal counsel for Peguis Child and Family Services, and I've been with the agency since December of 2019, coming on board to help this agency and its journey with respect to Bill C-92 and the process required to undertake to achieving the enactment of our legislation honoring our Children, Families, and Nation Act. I've been a practicing lawyer for about 16 years now, first in BC for a few years, then moving back to Manitoba in 2011 in private practice mainly, working with First Nations on governance and land claim matters. Myself too, I was new to the child welfare process, and I also take the same view as Glenn in terms of my experience wasn't colored by the fact that I was not involved with the Manitoba CFS Act processes whatsoever. I mean, coming on board, I had to learn it, and I did. But as we drafted our legislation, my experience wasn't colored so much by that experience of working with the Manitoba CFS Act. The fact is that, I'm coming back here to our nation and working on enhancing our own Indigenous legal traditions. And through that, through the opportunity of creating this law, this was a perfect vehicle for us to enhance our nation's own Indigenous legal traditions in this type of format, in this type of forum. And recognizing that, nationally there is a humanitarian crisis related to Indigenous child welfare. Our executive director and management team, expressed the strong desire to move forward so that we can get our children out of the provincial scheme out of the provincial processes and policy, and then let's create our own policies. Let's create our own regulations and our own law so that we can operate and operationalize and implement our legislation pursuant to our own Indigenous legal traditions. So C-92 was a good vehicle for acknowledging that inherent right that all First Nations carry, and it's through that inherent right that we're operating under our own legislation. So we see our law as governed by spirit, as Sunman has said, and we see our law as Anishinaabe and Nakanagawan, laws given to us by Creator. So it's through that Indigenous legal tradition that we're here and working towards putting in a program of policies that allow us to better affect service delivery for our children and our families and our young people. So we're doing that, we're achieving that, and it feels really, really good to do this good work because as Sunman has indicated, ceremony and spirituality has, from our perspective, informed us and led us on how this journey should be unfolding. So that's kind of a bit of insight from us personally and professionally in terms of the importance of ceremony, the importance of spirituality, the importance of acknowledging Creator and acknowledging our ancestors as well in terms of the work that they continue to do for us. I mean, there is a level of accountability that we're always carrying, right? And I've mentioned this before previously in terms of when we have accountability 7 generations in the past. Those are our elders, our ancestors that have an expectation of us to do that work in a good way. And then we have an accountability to those who are here presently with us. And that's something that our management team and our executive director have certainly emphasized to us in terms of what we need to do and how we need to be open and transparent to our community because our community is watching us, but also the nation is watching us as well. And internationally, we're being watched as well. So there's plenty of witnesses out there experiencing what we're conducting. So that's important. And lastly, we have 7 generations in the future to be accountable to, because we have to lay out the regulations and the policy and the framework so that this good work can be conducted well into the future, looking forward to those 7 generations. So those principles are indeed critical for us to ensure that we do the good work that is necessary. And working with Canada and later on Manitoba on the coordination agreement process, it certainly was challenging. Wordplay and wordsmithing, is kind of a unique art in its own form. So you have to be prepared to delve into, the kind of the historical circumstances of what those colonial policies did to us, like Sunman said, understand those results, understand those circumstances, and look at ways from your own perspective, from your community's view on what those challenges are and how do you overcome those challenges. So that's kind of a high level view of what was undertaken. And, it was challenging for sure, but at the end of the day, doing that hard work and putting in those hours, and our finance team and our service delivery expertise, came forward and undertook that work. And, all credit to them for doing that hard work, because that was necessary to ensure that Canada and Manitoba understood what challenges we faced in terms of how to properly resource a service delivery program that met our needs, pursuant to our law. So a lot of work that had to be taken on. And, just to kind of reiterate that, I mean, we have our law in place, we have like 7 regulations in place, and we have over 40 policies that we've developed concurrently as we've gone through this process. So in addition to that, there's also directives that speak to individual issues in terms of how we deal with those individual issues from a directives basis. So a lot of good work that had to be taken on, and there's still more work to do. And I certainly look forward to carrying on this hard work that we're doing for our nation. I don't know if Clemene wants to add anything else.
Thank you, Earl. I'll start off by introducing myself. My spirit name is Bald Eagle Woman. I'm from the Eagle Clan. My English name is Clemene Hornbrook, and I want to start off, as I always do, by acknowledging Sunman and the pipe that was lifted on behalf of all of us and our people and everybody in the world. It's a very broad view when we talk about spirit, and I want to also acknowledge Ryan for calling out to our ancestors, and to really open the door and welcome in our ancestors as we do this work, and that speaks to the accountability of that we are accountable to our ancestors, and we are accountable to the children and families in our community that are currently here with us and moving forward. But I also want to acknowledge all of the leaders and the Canadian government and all other governments that work together to create that vehicle. And I think about the last 20 years in terms of leadership ensuring that the impacts of colonization were really at the forefront to get Canada to move. So, that's kind of important that we recognize, the politics and the work that was done prior to any of us sitting here today. And so, when I look back at the coordination discussions and our relationship with Canada and Manitoba, it was really about building relationships and making sure that we were speaking the same language. And we all had one goal, and that was to ensure that our membership received equitable services, and that meant doing a 10-year financial analysis as well as a 10-year statistical analysis, because we needed to be able to analyze where we were at and project in terms of what was going to be equitable, and come to terms with the interim funding framework, and having many discussions. And we again had always raised the pipe. And I just want to back up a little bit because before we went to the elders and the pipe carriers and the medicine people, our board and myself, we passed tobacco to our leadership, and we got their permission to do this work. And we were supported to do this work on behalf of our people. And so it comes back to relationships. It comes back to a clear understanding of who will do what, and who will carry out the work. And so moving forward now in terms of those discussions, it was really important for us as the experts to really tell the story and find a different way to tell the story, so that we could prevent children from coming into care, and that we had the adequate resources, and we could really invest in children and families remain at home. So I'm really quite amazed in terms of the results so far, but I won't get too far into that, in terms of what the successes are. And there were a lot of difficult discussions that occurred, and of course both governments want to ensure that the agency and its representatives could continue providing competent services under a new service delivery model, and that we could partner and ensure that communication was open, transparent, and that we were accountable. I think when we look at any situation, we want to make sure that services are being delivered in a good way, and that we've learned from system issues and the old CFS system, and what the barriers were and what the challenges were and how it impacted our people in the community. So we're well aware of what those issues are. And when it comes to self-governance, and when it comes to inherent rights, and when it comes to our traditional and cultural practices, healing is a lifelong journey, and our people do have the answers. And it's fitting that circle into that square. And for me to deny anybody the truth about them having the answers to find and walk that journey of healing is to be ignorant, right? So it's recognizing strengths. And when we look at it through the CFS lens, how do we know that children are safe, right? So we've implemented the science of safety, which is an assessment tool, but that we've been able to look at through an Indigenous lens. And so I think some of the visible outcomes and some of the information in our AGM for 2022-23, which is on our website, really show those visible outcomes. We're just starting now to get into analyzing and reframing our story in terms of the strengths that our community has. So I'll just end there, but I also want to acknowledge our Chief Financial Officer, who's also here. Her name is Bev Stranger. So she is also open to questions that anybody may have in terms of the interim framework that we're currently under. Yeah.
Thank you very much. If we just go back a little bit, I was hearing a lot from everybody that relationships are very central to this whole process. So maybe we could talk a little bit about the importance of relationships in implementing the Act. And maybe let's hear from Manitoba first on this one.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. I can hear you, I can't see you.
Oh, that's fine. You don't need to know what I look like. So the first caveat I'll add is that I was not part of the team that negotiated with Peguis. That was primarily our Assistant Deputy Minister, Elizabeth Dembitska. But just generally, what Elizabeth has talked about and what we've seen in other discussions with nations is that relationship is just absolutely crucial, and you don't really get anywhere until you think about that and stop and talk about that. For the Manitoba government, when the Federal Act came into force, it took a bit of time. It was new, and it created a new space that no one really knew what it meant. So it took a bit of time for us to kind of wrap our heads around what this meant and what it would mean for the provincial system. And so it took a bit of time to get to the table. And when you come to the table 6 months after the work has started, that's not great for relationship building. But it's really through the grace of Peguis and Clemene and her team that they were willing to have us at the table. And what we found consistently is you have to come to the table and have the hard conversations and hear the hard truths. And you're not going to get anywhere until you do that first. And that's very consistent. For the Manitoba government, we're coming from a space where Manitoba's child welfare system has been described as ground zero for the apprehension of Indigenous children. We know that going into the discussions that we're having, and we know that we need to stop and talk about that before we can get into any discussion of how to move forward, what does the future look like. So that relationship piece is just absolutely essential.
I just wanted to add to that as well that, you know, not only was, you know, Sunman present, it was, you know, to lift the pipe. He was also there to provide that spiritual guidance to everybody that was at the table, and to remind us to stay focused on the children, and to, you know, let down our guards, learn to trust one another, be honest, be transparent. And it was very, very difficult because, you know, again, going back to, you know, concerns Manitoba had, is the agency able to ensure that there's communication using the intake module? And I know from that's just one example, right? How are we as a nation and agency going to communicate with the rest of our partners in the CFS system to ensure that there's, you know, good coordination? And I see the intake module as, you know, a telephone. It's important that everybody knows who's providing services to who. So that was just one example. And I know that, you know, sovereignty, information sovereignty comes up. And so, you know, having discussions like that, but it was really important, I think, for our team. And the reason why we were so successful at building relationships is because we've always had that pipe, and we always had that wisdom and those teachings always there with us, as we tried to, you know, reconcile with the CFS system, and reconcile essentially with each other, because it's very easy to blame and point fingers. And we were always reminded that this is not about blaming and pointing fingers. This is about, you know, accountability and speaking the truth. And you know, so that was really key. And you know, so I would definitely recommend, and we do recommend to all of our colleagues and any nations that have requested, you know, to hear our story and our journey. We always talk about how important it is to have, you know, the pipe there, and your elders there. And, you know, when we look at who was present, our chief and council were always present. There was always one available, one member, and we had our board members that were also available. So having witness also to the process was very key, right? And we were all on the same page. And it was, you know, really beautiful when we were able to come together at the lodge. And I think once we came together physically, because we had had these discussions for 18 months, you know, via Zoom, you know, once we came together, it was just almost like we were able to move a lot faster. And I think we had 2 or 3 in-person meetings. So, you know, if we had more in-person meetings, I think that would have really, you know, moved things along faster. But yeah, I just wanted to add that piece in there.
Glenn, I see your hand up there.
I don't know if that's the way we're doing things, but I thought I'd take a chance. Just hearing both Emmett and Clem speak about coming to the table, I thought it was important, Clem, as well, to talk about the pandemic. We were in the middle of the pandemic when we started this process, and it was really difficult, just from my perspective, to build those relationships, to get to know people. And for me personally, the ceremony at the beginning of every meeting was really important. Like, it helped us come together to have these difficult discussions. But by the time we finally were able to travel and come to the community, I can't emphasize enough how important I think that was. And it's important for us to get out from behind our desks and to go, like, people say, oh yes, well, you know, I've been to such and such community, so I have an idea. No, you need to go to the community you're working with and see the reality and see what the difference is that this work is going to make, and what it looks like to not be doing better. So I just want to, I guess, recommend for anyone who has an opportunity, travel. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it there today, but I'm traveling in Labrador, so I'm going in the wrong direction.
I'd just like to add further for Canada. I think Canada's approach to ensure that you know, the national team leading the negotiations with the province and the respective Indigenous Governing Body, in this case Peguis, is that there is the regional expertise, if you will, from a program perspective. I like to think that the region played a pivotal support for both Peguis Child and Family Services, but also with the national team. With negotiations, the region did hold the experience and of having that existing relationship with Peguis Child and Family Services, and helping build that awareness when, you know, there were things that were at the table that maybe Canada didn't quite understand. You know, I like to think that the region was able to bridge that gap and play that support, both again for Peguis Child and Family Services in negotiating a successful agreement, but also for Canada in the role that we played together from a national and regional perspective. So I'd just like to add that. I think that was a key factor in really creating awareness on both parts, so, and being a support to both parties.
I just want to mention something that wasn't really a part of the table discussions itself, but it certainly hinges on relationship building. And prior to our law coming into force on January 21st, 2022, we had a meeting with members of the bench. So members of the justices from the King's Bench, now the King's Bench. So Chief Justice Joyal and several of his colleagues on the bench. And then we had a follow-up meeting with members of the Provincial Judges Court. So Chief Judge Weeb and several of her colleagues as well. So what we did was we introduced our legislation and just talked generally about our law and what our intentions were and the purposes of our law, and just basically introducing them to that event where our law is going to be, well, through our law, we grant concurrent jurisdiction to the King's Bench and the Provincial Judges Court with respect to the ability to grant orders. So we've introduced that to them. We've initiated that relationship with them. So it wasn't coming out of the blue for them when we actually were to deal with a temporary order, for example, under our legislation. So they were very open-minded. I really appreciated that. And it certainly opened the door for what I consider a smooth relationship that we're having with both the King's Bench and the provincial court with respect to child protection orders. So we've been granted, I believe, 9 orders under our law now through the King's Bench and our provincial court here in Peguis. So the King's Bench occurs in Winnipeg and the provincial court occurs in Peguis. So we've been granted 9 orders to date under our law. So that's part of the success story that we'll perhaps speak a little bit to further later on. Miigwech.
Well, I think we can talk about it now. Maybe just an open question for whoever wants to go first, but can we discuss some of the successes of the process so far?
Well, I'm going to jump in, I guess, and I'll take the first crack at this. Successes. Okay, I want to talk about some of the legal orders. Our first order granted under our law was September 22nd, 2022, and that was a transfer from a non-Indigenous agency to Peguis CFS. We were going to obviously accept the transfer, but there was a legal technicality there. The non-Indigenous agency wanted to obtain a permanent order first because the temporary order time ran out. So their only recourse was to get a permanent order and then transfer to us. Well, we said, no, we can't accept permanent orders because our law doesn't allow it. So it made its way up to intake court, and the intake judge looked at the situation and understood what was going on, and he granted the order pursuant to our law, but it was a temporary order, not a permanent order. So that was the first time, and as far as we understand, in Manitoba court history, that an order was granted under an Indigenous law at a superior court level. So what happened was there was this transfer, and the temporary order time of 15 months ran out. The non-Indigenous agency wanted to appeal. We said no. And once the order was granted in our name, a little bit of the backstory to this was that mom and dad, never missed a visit with their two young infants, but all visits had to take place at the non-Indigenous agency's office. So the very next day when we got the order granted in our name, our worker took these two young infants to visit mom and dad at mom and dad's home. Obviously, mom and dad were super, super emotional, super, super happy for that opportunity to arise. And we've been working with his family on reunification now, and I think they're really, really close to being reunified. So that's like one example of a success story in terms of what we've been able to do as a result of the implementation of our law from the court adversarial process, right? Working with our families to ensure that, the best circumstances arise in whatever challenging situations they're facing with. Extension of service agreements. We're working with our young people from ages 18 to 26. And as of 2 weeks ago, my understanding is that we have 96 extension of service agreements in place now. So our youth empowerment team is doing some really amazing work on bringing our young people who were former children in care, bringing them together and providing support systems for them. Perhaps Clemene can go into details on what the youth empowerment team is doing, but they're doing a lot of great work with our young people so that their journey to independence as adults is well supported. Customary care agreements, again, another alternative that we're implementing, and we have approximately, and I'm just because there's new customary care agreements coming to my office almost on a daily basis here, but we have at least 40 customary care agreements that mean that those 40 agreements are taking those 40 matters out of the court system, and we're dealing with them internally, not through an adversarial court process. So that's part of the preventative measures in terms of putting that support systems in for family and kinship support to help mom and dad with respect to dealing with their young kids in those situations. So we're moving away from the court process, and our docket lawyer is saying we're putting him out of business. But the thing is, we're moving towards getting permanent orders rescinded, and we're moving towards guardianship, subsidized guardianship, so that we can support families and caring for their extended family. So again, that's another new program that we're implementing that perhaps Clemene would like to speak to later on. Those are just a few of the successes that we've put in place as a result of the implementation of our law.
I'll just start there. You're doing good when you're not showing up, at the local courthouse for 4 consecutive months. And it's really good, and when we start analyzing our statistics, the last reporting year, we had 14 children go through the court process, and they could have been from the previous fiscal year where an order was ending, or one of our members that were transferred to the agency. So it's we're working with families, we're avoiding the court process, we're not taking children and families to court. We're using our traditional ways of working with our people, and that's sitting in a sharing circle, and that's really standing by our parents. And I know from a social worker perspective, people think it's complicated, but it's really based on love, respect, humility, and all the 7 teachings we have. So it's about, you know, letting go of the illusion that you have power and control, and recognizing the authority, the inherent rights are with the parent. So, you know, coming up with safety plans, letting the family come up with a safety plan. And then if that safety plan doesn't work, then we come up with another one. So it's really about allowing people to grow, supporting our people make decisions. And it's not to say that there are no valid child protection concerns, but it's really opening up. If a family of 120 wanted to meet to talk about concerns they have with a their daughter and son, that whole family, the door would be open to them, because they're invested. That is their family, right? So I know when we look at the old CFS system, you know, it was like, no, you can't have anybody in your meeting. You can't have anybody support you. You're only allowed 2 people. We don't have space for it. If we had to rent a tent and meet outside, then we would meet outside. So it's just really basic concepts. I see them as basic. And it's really just being honest and transparent, you know, but I think when I look at our you know, data, we're also being told something in terms of the significant shifts, and you know, you could also reference our AGM on our website, but you know, we have our intake and after hours program, and our intake program is dealing with approximately 250 intakes a month. And when you look at all the reasons and who's phoning and who's, you know, asking for support, we have 961 members that are calling our intake program and asking for support. These are all voluntary services. So, you know, the relationship and the work we've done in the community, and the and we're asking our members to trust us, that we're really there as a helper, as the Shkabe. We're really there to help them. We're not there to judge them. We're not there to remove their children. We're there to support them, and we're there to support them and their family as they come up with their own solutions. And I've always said, at the end of the day, you know, we leave at 5 o'clock. At the end of the day, the family is there supporting, you know, the mom or the dad. So it's really about, you know, the family coming together and working with each other. So I remember always hearing this elders wise words, and it was, you know, Sudman's dad, you know, and Gary McCorster, and he would always tell us, it's not any government, it's not any agency that's really going to protect the child. It's the family that's going to protect that child. And for us to believe that, you know, that could be done was just sort of an illusion. And I know it's like a big concept, but at the end of the day, you know, as a mother, as a grandmother, I am responsible for my adult children. I am responsible for my grandchildren, and it's just you know, and I'm responsible for my nieces and nephews because I'm their auntie. So it's that relationship that we have as Anishinaabe people. And I remember presenting our strategic service plan, and we were asked why and how we got to the point of having, it was 70% of our children that required care placed with immediate and extended family. How did you get your kinship stats so high when we didn't tell you to do that? And it goes back to, you know, asking me and our team, who are you, right? It comes back to our identity and doing what's right. as a community member, as a mother, as an auntie. So it's really a reflection of our identity and why we do certain things. And so, you know, we've I guess, you know, from an outsider perspective, you know, we framed our service delivery model around the 7 teachings, right? And so it can be viewed as complicated from you know, other people, but it's really quite basic for us, right? Because these are things that we naturally do, um, and so when we look at the impacts of, you know, colonization, and we see our people as not being able to get up. Some of our people have survived and are thriving, and some of our people are still on one knee. So looking through that lens in terms of how we all walk together on our healing journey, and recognizing that healing is a lifelong journey is important, right? So that's, you know, a little bit about our service delivery model, our framework, who we are as Anishinaabe. But, you know, 43 customary care agreements. These are family members picking up the phone, calling the agency, saying, we have a problem, we want to come in, we have a plan, and we need the agency to support us. So it's a huge shift. We're not waiting for calls, and we're not out responding. We're actually getting the calls and then we're responding. So that's a huge shift. And when we look at our prevention services, whether it be any cultural programs or any programming or community events, our statistics in the last reporting period, we had 11,020 members participate in our, you know, what we know in CFS as prevention services. So again, this did not all happen overnight. We've been talking about reconciliation in our community. We started having community, you know, gatherings where we would talk about the truth, the history of colonial policies, the history of CFS, what were the impacts. We were talking about customary care and what the implementation was going to look like in 2011, 2012. And we were out in the community having those difficult conversations about the role of the CFS system under the provincial, you know, legislation. So, you know, it seems to me very drastic when we look at, you know, our law really being in place for 21 months, and really only having the funding, you know, since April. So we, you know, through the coordination discussions, we began operationalizing as we went along, and planning always behind the scenes to make sure that when we went live, we you know, we had appropriate people trained. And so, you know, those are just some highlights. But I also wanted to, you know, acknowledge what Scott said. And he was like the interpreter at times. I remember being so frustrated, where I had done maybe a 30-page document with all the definitions and overview of CFS, starting from the AJI, CWI, and what the terms were and what they really meant. And but you know, in terms of the interim funding, it's really allowed us to invest in children and families, and we are just starting to make some big moves and some big system changes within our organization that's really reflective of the work we're doing. So just another fact so that it's clear, you know, we've always had approximately 70 children in care in the community of Peguis First Nation, and I always thought that was really low, being the largest First Nation in Manitoba. And now we have 44 you know, permanent children in care in our community. And we can't run fast enough, and we are meeting with our care providers. We are meeting with immediate and extended family, and we are providing the options of, you know, customary acceptance and supported subsidized guardianship. So we just can't move fast enough. And, you know, if we're allowed to continue to do our work and focus on our work with our community and with our families, I'm happy to say that, you know, 2 years from now, we might not have, you know, 218 kids in care. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So we need more time to do the good work with our community. And so I also just want to let everybody know that we put out our request for proposals for our internal reviewer, and we will be releasing a report probably in April, kind of, you know, looking at big picture, our journey, and sort of where we're at. And we are working really hard to analyze and to tell a different story. And that includes, you know, having a survey so our members can tell us what's different. And I think the fact that, you know, 961 members called in to say, I need help, that's the biggest problem. Well, I guess that's the biggest issue we would, you know, people in general have, asking for help. I know I have a hard time asking for help, right? Because we're so socialized, you know, not to ask for help, because you ask for help, you're weak. If you ask for help, you're going to be blamed. If you're asked for help, it comes with all these negative feelings. So I'm really proud of the work that our team has done, you know, to work with our community to support them on a regular, like on a continuous basis, and to encourage them to, it's okay to ask for help given everything that we've gone through. And you will not be judged, you will be supported, and you will be stood beside, and we'll get through what we need to get through. And it's not 3 strikes and you're out. 3 strikes, you know, and your children are gone. Again, it's about continuous investment. So with that, I think I'm done.
I'd like to just take a minute just to offer my congratulations to Peguis and Peguis Child and Family Services Agency. I have a long history working with Clemene and the agency prior to the signing of the coordination agreement. And, you know, I just like to remind folks that are joining us here today, this is 9 months. We're talking a period of 9 months since January when the coordination agreement was signed. Like Clem said, the funding agreement didn't come into effect until April 1st. And like Earl said, there's a lot of work that was done. There's still a lot of work to do. But, you know, the key highlights here that Clem just shared to me are outstanding, given the period of time that we're talking about. So again, bravo to Peguis Child and Family Services for the work that you've done, and I look forward to the great work that you're going to continue to do. It's really exciting to see the shift. I know that under the current or under the old system, and, you know, administering that policy and funding, you know, I'd like to think that we always found a way to make things work to help the community and the agency realize the way things should be done within the kind of the parameters that we were faced with at the time. So yeah, I mean, I think that all is part and parcel of what led to where we are today, and the successful conclusion of the coordination agreement that was signed in January with Peguis. So, exciting.
A quick update here. At the last court appearance here in Peguis earlier this month, there was a guardianship granted to grandmother and grandfather. So 2 more kids were taken out of federal care in terms of that that category, right? So grandma and grandpa are going to actually be working with the agency on supported subsidized guardianship very soon. So again, 2 more kids that were taken out of care. So the work continues.
Hi, everybody. I just, can you hear me first of all? Yeah. I just want to add to that question of success and what this legislation is leading to. It's all stated in the legislation, like the blueprint more or less is stated in there. And I represent the Sun Lodge. That's one of the main areas that is being used with the children and the families. That is one of the main places they go on their retreats, and it's been that way since the beginning. We have 3 different groups that come in every month for three days at a time, and it's been that way for a year or more now. And if you want to understand what we're looking for in all of this, what is it going to be? How do we know if it's successful? When is that point going to be reached? I would say, I would use myself as that example. You know, I wasn't in CFS, but the situation I was in and the journey it took to get to where I am today is exactly what's being provided to those children. And the Sun Lodge village, you know, there's cabins there for a larger amount of people to come and stay. The whole journey I've been on in the last 30 years, we stayed in camps in 3 different areas. And it was all the group of people going there because they wanted to know the truth. They believed that these elders and different ones in place at that time were properly leading them. And they went there, we went there, and learned all the things we did. And when I think about it today, it was almost like, you know, they already took us through what's becoming now, that Sun Lodge and that village. But this time, the ones that are in there, they're taught now. They know now. Their faith is there now, because back in the camp days, it was all new. That's what I was getting to as I was talking to you in the beginning, that it wasn't just an automatic thing. It wasn't just, you know, I'm taken to the ceremony and all of a sudden it's all good. And oh, that's who we are. And click, click, click. It takes a long time to reach that level we're trying to get back to. And it's like education. My dad said it best. He said, if you ever want to understand who you are, consider this. You go to school for 12 years first, high school. Then from there, you go to college or university for however long again to get that understanding, diploma, or whatever it is you're looking for. So before you say no to your own way, he said, put those 12 years into it first. Then try say no. I guarantee you, your whole perspective on it will be gone. Now these children that come in these doors at the lodge, they come in with a list of everything that's wrong with them, everything that's wrong in their life, their bad side about them, their behaviors. That's how they all came in the beginning. They all had a list like that. So we're all on edge, like, who are these kids? But spirit, like I continue to say, we're governed by spirit, and that's something that's missing in all of this. That's something that you are unaware of at this time, because it's all politics, it's all doing what you are doing. That's what's missing, and that's something that's going to have to strengthen when it comes to us and you. That's definitely something that's going to have to strengthen and become more part of everything in order for you to understand who you are in all of this. But because of spirit and what they know and the love they have for life and the love they have for the people and the children, They said, never mind that blacklist that these children all carry. This is what you want to provide for those children that come through this door, is let them be kids, because they aren't allowed that out there. Continuously going through the ringer, being shifted all over the place. It's already in them at their little young age that they aren't accepted, they aren't wanted. Sooner or later, from here, they're going to get shipped to somewhere else. Spirit knows all that about them. Say they aren't interested in nothing. They're damaged, they're hurting, they're suffering. They just want to be loved. They just want to be given a chance to be children. All that was taken from them. And that's the first thing we do with them. They come in closed, they come in angry, they come in not wanting to be a part of it, whether it's their own feeling, because like I said, they're being shifted all over the place, or if it's influence from the outside, their foster parents or whoever. Because nobody knows what we have at this point. It's all new, it's baby steps, but I know. We know at the lodge. We went through it. Now it's real. Now the faith is there. Now we're ready. We're welcoming whoever comes through the door. We know there's an opportunity there for them. But slowly but surely, the Spirit says, those children will begin to awaken. Those children will begin to feel good. Those children will begin to see and feel what's going on here. And they'll make those steps. They'll come to you and ask a question. They'll come to you and share a dream. They'll slowly begin to understand that these are people that really care about them and love them. And they can develop a relationship with them, and it'll take shape in the most natural way. Not by force, or not by expecting them to do certain things. Like everything is out there. That's the difference here. The only requirement I see out of everybody else in terms of the adults is support that. When I shared that story of when I completed my purpose, 4th year of that Sundance, when that message came by way of my teachers and elders, what a blown away message that was. What an accomplishment to hear. And I went farther than that. I didn't just stop there. Now the lodge is in place. Now I'm walking with these ones here. It's all about the beauty of what we have and what we want to continue to spread. But there was no big celebration. There was no recognition. There was none of what you see children going to school for and graduating for, how big that is. Everything tied into education, the way they're recognized and all those big things. There was none of that. The many times we went out of our way behind closed doors and everything we did, there was never any of that. Absolute humbleness, an absolute reflection of love, that nothing was more important than just walking with the Creator, satisfying Him, and knowing you did good. That's how real this is to us. That's why I sit there and take this pipe every time they pass that tobacco, because I know that's what's in their hearts. They're about moving forward. And we're in this together. Yous have a part to play in this, because yous had a part to play in it for why it's this way today. We still feel like we have to really convince yous why yous need to support us. Why is it like that? Why is it like that? Why isn't you guys saying, we understand, we're going to do everything we can to assure that your people get back to where they were at one time? That's what it's about. It's way beyond what it is right now. This is just a baby step. This is just the beginning. This has got to spread like wildfire right across Turtle Island. All these things got to be put back into place. Our people had standards, our people had their own laws, their own regulations on what was going to create a healthy community, a healthy family. They had how you're going to raise your child, how that's going to be supported, and how everybody's going to play that part in making sure that all those things are put in place. It's not like that today. This is only the beginning of that battle. And a few individuals are in the forefront of that. And that's definitely all of you in this picture right now. So keep up the fight. And I would say, you can't expect those instant results. Those results are there. And if you really want to know what results are, then come. Come to our lodge, come to our ceremonies and see how it's being done. You're never going to feel it. You're never going to get it looking at us from over there through the screen. Come to the lodge, come to the ceremonies, come and sit with these kids, come and see what they do. Come and see how they're fighting for their life as the Creator lays it out for them. As the Creator says, bring those children over here. Bring them over here. Invite them to come and play their part there. I'll take care of them. You come and witness that. You come and feel that. That's where you're going to get what you're looking for. That's what you're going to get in terms of the success you're looking for. It goes beyond what's out there. Once you establish and put that into the child, when they grow up, they can decide what they're going to do with it from there. They can decide whatever direction they want to go, but they'll be good human beings. They'll understand that life is sacred. They'll understand that they have a role and a responsibility to fulfill throughout their adult life. And they'll reflect that, they'll represent that, they'll be that example. The world is a mess, can't deny it. We need a better way. We need answers, we need solutions, and they're coming. They're there, they're in place, and they're coming through each and every one of us as individuals. Nobody's in control of anything. We all have the opportunity to play a beautiful part in all of this. Creator holds the key. And for our people, all those answers are connected on that red road. And that's what we want to pursue. That's what we want to go and get. And that's what we want to bring back. And we need your support. We ain't begging you. We're saying it. It'll help speed up the process. It'll help get us there a lot faster. And if you really need proof, if you really think you need to ask questions and say, well, how is it working this way or that way, whatever, like I said, then come. Just travel the world, no problem. You can go here and there whenever. Come here. Come and spend some time, come to an actual ceremony. That's the greatest place you're going to witness and see and feel. Not just a visit. Come to the sun dance, come to the warrior dance, come to those ceremonies, come into the sweat lodge. Come and see how we're connected to spirit. It can't be explained. You can see the history books, watch the movies, hear from the different elders that are all over the place out across Turtle Island, but until you're in there, you'll never know. But I want to be that voice of these children because they deserve to be appreciated. They deserve to, they're the reason all of this is happening. They're sacrificing and being overlooked, being looked at as, a problem. Meanwhile, they're saving us. They're giving us something to fight for, something good to fight for. And they deserve to be looked at. They deserve to be thanked. They deserve to be just lifted like they have never ever been before. Everybody owes that to them. And that's what I want to encourage here, and that's what I want to stress here. And more than ever, that's what I want to say to all of you. Come, arrange it, fix it, somehow make it happen. That's the real thing that's waiting, the real thing that's missing. All of you. Someone's got to be the one to take the role and take that first step and make the effort. That's the way it always has to be. Someone's got to show that they have courage and faith, take a step outside of the box, go out of their comfort zone, go out of the system zone and go and get it. If I listened the way everyone else did, things wouldn't be the way they are today. I said, I'm free. I want to blow the socks off of whatever it is I'm going to do, and I could definitely say that it's been that way. I want it for everybody. It was never a selfish thing. I want it for all of you. Have courage. Let's see what you can do then for these children. Let's see what you're willing to do. When you have faith, it'll be the biggest thing that you could ever imagine, and bigger. So I just wanted to add to all of that. Grateful for you, for everything you're doing. Keep it up.
I also wanted to share that we had, it's in our report, but we had a total of 5,700 members and children attend the Sun Lodge, right? And one of my colleagues was asking, how do you deal with high-risk youth, and what sort of services are you providing? And because we've been working with the lodge and having our children attend for the last 6 years, that has been their medicine. That has been crisis response. That has been our traditional elder services. And, that support carries on when they are in the empowerment youth team. So there's lots that we have to share, but we have a ceremony coming up on October the 15th, correct? So, you're being invited, and that's part of reconciliation, right? Taking that first step and coming and experiencing, coming to pray with us, coming to be with us, and building that relationship. And we recently partnered with General Authority in terms of sharing information on customary agreements, and they shared information on supported subsidized guardianship. And so we shared with one another, and that resulted with inviting their team out to the Sundance, and coming to the Sundance for the first time. I think we had about maybe 15 of their team members come to the Sun Lodge, and it was really beautiful. It was beautiful for me because me personally, and I'm helping as an auntie because I know that they provide services to approximately 200 members, 200 Indigenous children that aren't registered with any First Nation, but those, we're all related. We're always taught we're all related. And so I just wanted to, if you want more information, you can reach out to me, and we'll provide some dates and coordinate, your participation at the Sun Lodge Village, and get you a good Sun Man for sharing. And there's never enough time, right, for us to share and to really express ourselves. And but if you come to ceremony, you'll understand, and watch out for general authorities newsletter, because they'll share about their experience, and it is reconciliation for us on a individual level. It is reconciliation for us on a community level, and it was very, very beautiful. Yeah, it's something you can't really describe. You can't describe that connection, and the connection we all have as service providers to improve the lives of all children in Manitoba when it comes to everything. So get you make good son, man.
Okay, thank you. I would like to once again thank all of our panelists for that thought-provoking discussion, and to Sunman, of course, for those closing thoughts, and as well to all who attended today. I'm sure there's a big virtual round of applause happening out there. We'll just have to take everyone's word for it. As sometimes happens with such wonderful discussions, we've gone over time. So that means we're going to have to forego the Q&A today. However, I would like to invite people looking for more information on this topic or for contact info, which I see in the chat, to visit the Peguis First Nation's website, which is peguisfirstnation.ca. It's a great place to learn about all the fantastic work that's happening over there, and like I said, to find some contact information. So I've been Tom Weeb with IFAC Manitoba, and thanks again for attending. Before we go, I would like once again to invite Ryan Stevenson to end today with a song, if Ryan is still over there as we end today.
Awesome.
Thank you all. Thanks once again to everyone for joining us, and have a good afternoon.